Mr. Mulroney, do you feel that?
Thank you very much. Good to see you.
Sir, about the Paradise Papers.
Well, that, of course, is former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney. He has refused to talk in detail about a friend of his whose name turned up in the leak of offshore tax haven documents known as the Paradise Papers. That friend is Wafik Saeed. He's what's known as a fixer. Saeed amassed a fortune over the years by making connections and brokering deals. Secretive, but well-known in elite circles from Riyadh to London, his name is linked to a controversial Saudi-British arms deal. And thanks to the Paradise Papers, CBC Radio-Canada's Frederick Zalak discovered Saeed has some very curious Canadian connections.
It was a $70 billion arms deal between British Aerospace and Saudi Arabia, the biggest military contract in UK history that saw advanced fighter jets sold to the Desert Kingdom. But that deal became mired in controversy after allegations of corruption published by The Guardian.
The warplanes that were being sold were wildly overpriced. I think probably 30 or 40% overpriced. This excess money that was being charged to the Saudis was then distributed in the form of corrupt payments.
According to published reports, millions were paid in secret commissions to Saudi officials, and Syrian billionaire Wafik Saeed was a crucial middleman in the deal. By 2004, British authorities launched a corruption investigation. Around the same time, Wafik Saeed recruited a former Canadian Prime Minister to help him manage his massive fortune. He paid Brian Mulroney $100,000 a year to sit on the board of Saeed Holdings, an investment company which was based in Bermuda, a country with a 0% tax rate.
To have this individual as a friend and associate raises very serious issues about the judgment of Brian Mulroney. He should have immediately dissociated himself from any individual who is seen as integral to this awful transaction.
As British officials followed evidence which led them to Wafik Saeed's Swiss bank accounts, the investigation was spiked by then Prime Minister Tony Blair. He was pressured by the Saudis, who threatened to cut off anti-terror cooperation with the UK.
It seems very unlikely to me that Brian Mulroney couldn't have been aware of these quite sensational allegations that we were publishing day by day in The Guardian to the international media, and were being picked up all over the world.
Sir, about the Paradise Papers.
Today, Mulroney is unbothered by these claims, telling Radio-Canada in a letter that Wafik Saeed is an outstanding man, a highly successful investor, and a leading philanthropist. He's also a good friend. But the Paradise Papers reveal another secret about that good friend. We found his passport, which shows that he is a Canadian citizen.
It's very difficult to understand why he should, because he doesn't live in Canada. He's got a tax address in Monaco, but he doesn't live there. He lives in Britain. He's got a huge house in the British countryside and a smart flat in London's Mayfair. So this is a discovery that astonishes me.
Wafik Saeed says he ultimately got his citizenship through a Canadian government program meant for rich immigrant investors. But Saeed would have had to live in Canada 3 years to eventually become a Canadian. He claims in official filings he lived in a modest neighborhood in Montreal, in a basement apartment at this location.
This is not the billionaire lifestyle. Unit 1 in a building like this in Montreal. That's a little unusual. It does raise a flag. Was this truly a residence? Was this where the person normally lived? Maybe, but I would have some doubts.
Saeed told us that he got his citizenship legally and lived in Canada for 3 years. He also says he often used that Montreal basement unit, but government filings in the UK and newspaper reports from that time suggest that Saeed used London as his place of work and residence.
Mr. Wafik Saeed is a Canadian citizen
In 2015, Wafik Said was granted an honorary degree from St. Francis Xavier University. Around the same time, he donated $4 million to the university's new Brian Mulroney Institute of Government.
So Brian Mulroney is knowingly participating in the process of rehabilitating the arms dealer who facilitated the largest, most corrupt arms transaction in history.
Frédéric Zalac, CBC News, Montreal.